everybody, my name is Bobby Linkhorn. I am a certified recovery peer specialist and a RAP facilitator here at South Florida Wellness Network. Welcome to day one, Introduction to RAP. We're going to be discussing the key concepts and all the wonderful things that RAP has to offer. Let's go ahead and start with the key concepts. Here are the 5 key concepts. We have hope, personal responsibility, education, self-advocacy, and support. Would somebody like to participate and give me a reason why some of these are important to them? Sure, Jessica. Thank you. Absolutely right. Where have we come with all the hope that our peers have given us? Thank you, Jessica, for sharing that. Wonderful. Would anybody else like to participate? What are some of the key concepts to them and how are they important? Gretchen? Support. Thank you very much for sharing that. Gretchen was sharing that she couldn't have done this by herself. She needed support in the journey. Thank you so much. All right, so take one good look at them because I'm going to put them away and let's find out if you can remember them. All right. Who's going to win a squishy stress ball? Yes, you, Sarah. Awesome. Good job. All right, we're going to move on to the next section. This is Wellness Toolbox. This is when we take a look at things that we have done in the past that has worked for us when we're not feeling well, or we could do to help ourselves stay well and to feel better. For example, when I'm not feeling so well, one of the very first things that I like to do is to call my best friend. She's on my top of my supporters, and she's always been a non-judgmental listener, and I love her for that. So I call my best friend, and I share everything that's going on, and I always feel a tremendous amount better. Who would like to help me add to the toolbox? Yes, Stephen. Thank you. Prayer? Thank you so much. That's a great one. Thank you for your participation, Stephen. Chris? Journal? Absolutely. Does anybody else identify with some of these ones? Me too. They work wonders. All right, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up the Wellness Toolbox and take a look at our next section. And please, while you are following along, be sure to open up your own RAP book and fill in what works for you. You're going to find that through the process of growing and healing, you're going to often tap back into that toolbox and add things that are now working for you, or delete things that used to work for you that are not working for you anymore. Let's go ahead and take a look at our daily maintenance plan. This is something that you're going to do every day to maintain your wellness. We don't want to have to slip back into old behaviors or slip back into old attitudes. Try to maintain a healthy wellness balance. So one of the things that I particularly like to do is to give myself sufficient time in the morning. This is to drink my coffee, to read my books, to do my journaling, praying, and getting the kids together. For me, that is exactly 1.5 hours before I have to walk out the door. I put that down precisely in that order in my wellness plan. Because for me, I need precise, concise direction on how to work my plan. Does anybody else want to add? What do they do on an everyday basis to maintain their own personal wellness? Stephanie, please share. All right, great. Stephanie has to go to a 12-step meeting every day. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for your participation. Craig? All right, very good. Thank you. Craig has to call his sponsor every day to check in. Tell him how he's feeling. These are great ideas for your daily maintenance plan. If anybody can identify with their peers here in the room, be my guest. Write down some of their ideas because we learn best from each other. Would anybody else like to tap into the daily maintenance plan before we move on to our next section? All right, great. We're going to go ahead and move on. Again, just like I said before, these things are going to change as you change. They're going to grow as you grow. Things that used to work for you may not work for you anymore. Things that you've picked up from your peers you've never done before, you may start doing and recognize that it works for you too. All right, the next course of action is we're going to take a look at our triggers and the action plan when triggers occur. First, let's just talk about what triggers are. Triggers are external events or circumstances that produce signs of uncomfortability. I want you to all keep in mind that triggers are a very normal thing. They happen on a daily basis to a lot of people. But they are only normal when we respond to them at once. So let's take a look at that. I put up here one of my own personal examples just to get us started. One of my triggers that I recently experienced was physical illness. I didn't know physical illness was a trigger to me until I started working a RAP plan and I became more mindful of my own wellness. So, a couple of months ago, I got the cold on February 1st. That cold lasted a week. And when the cold dissipated, I got the stomach virus, which lasted 2 days. And as soon as the stomach virus was gone, I got a sinus infection, which lasted about 3 weeks. I was very sick. And come to find out, I was also pregnant. So there was a lot going on that I didn't know was going on because I wasn't slowing down enough to take a look at my own personal wellness. So physical illness is a huge trigger for me. I got so unraveled, emotionally unbalanced, and things were looking worse. So I put physical illness, but my action plan is even more important. So what I'm going to do next time I start to feel ill, I'm going to take time off of work, call in, let my boss know I'm not feeling well. And I'm also going to cancel my other responsibilities after work because sometimes those are more exhausting than being at work. I'm going to check in with my doctor and I'm going to ask my supporters to help me with my family, most likely my husband. And then I'm going to start taking care of myself. And maybe I won't be sick for a month next time and I'll be able to get back to work rather quickly. Would anybody else like to share some of their triggers? And let's go ahead and put a very precise, concise action plan next to that trigger. Somebody like to share? Stephen. Stephen says, aggressive people. Stephen, do you mean aggressive verbally, physically? All types of, okay. So he's talking about all types of aggressive people. What happens if you're at work and you encounter an aggressive person? Or if you're out waiting for the bus or you're at the grocery store? Let's talk about a really good action plan for this trigger. That's not a problem, Stephen. If you don't have an action plan, we could ask your peers for support. Would anybody in here like to help Stephen? Awesome. Thank you, Sarah, for participating. Maybe that could work. Pause, pray, and process the situation. I like that. Stephen, I'd like to ask you, have you ever done anything in the past that worked for you? Okay, great. Stepping away from the situation, giving yourself time to breathe. I like that. Thank you so much for that. All right, so I'd like to ask if there's any other participants or volunteers that like to share their triggers or action plans before we move on. Wonderful. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next course of action. Early warning signs and action plan. This is my particular favorite part of REP. Early warning signs are the subtle signs that are often ignored because they don't realize they're tied into your wellness. For me, this was one of my biggest eye-opening sections of REP, the subtle signs. Well, here's one of the subtle signs that I've given you as an example, and we'll open up the room and ask if there's anybody to provide feedback. I noticed for me, anxiety creeps in. But it doesn't necessarily feel like my heart's beating or I feel shaky or nervous in any way, shape, or form. Usually it comes out as I'm very easily annoyed, irritable, and agitated with many people at work and at home. So when I start recognizing that this is going on a little bit more often, I need to take action. And this is what I have down for my action plan. I talk to my loved ones about how I'm feeling, because if they don't know how I'm feeling, it causes a whole lot more problems. And I also take some quiet time outdoors by myself, if possible. And sometimes it requires contacting some of my supporters to watch my kids. But once I do this, I always start to feel better right away. And if I don't let the subtle sign pass me by, things don't have to get worse. So by a show of hands, would anybody like to volunteer and share with us what some of their early warning signs are, and maybe even an action plan? Melanie. Thank you so much. That's actually a really good one. It's something that happens to me too. Often losing my phone and keys. Now, this may not be something that is a sign for anybody. Maybe they're frequently losing their keys, and that's a normal thing for them. But somebody who doesn't often lose their phone and keys starts to notice that this is happening more often. It might be a subtle sign. So, Melanie, what would you do in a case where you start to lose your keys and your phone? Very good. Slow down. Cancel some commitments? Okay. And take care of yourself? Awesome. Thank you so much, Melanie. That was a great example. Thank you for your participation. All right, I'm going to ask if there's any other volunteers that'd like to give an example before we move on. Wonderful. Let's take a look at what's next. When things are breaking down, and an action plan. So now we've moved past the subtle signs and we're feeling worse and worse. This is a very crucial time. This is a time where we need to take immediate action so we don't lead into a crisis. So I've given an example, as I have in the past. My example is not feeling, just not feeling. This is a real good indicator that things are getting a lot worse for me. Not feeling is also like feeling nothing, feeling numb, feeling isolated, not wanting to talk to people, and I'm normally a very social person. I have this down very clear in my plan. So my action plan would be to check my daily maintenance, make sure that I'm doing everything that works for me, make sure that I'm doing everything that was required of me to maintain my wellness. Chances are I probably haven't been doing a lot of those things. Also, do something that makes me happy. And I gave an example of going to dinner with my husband. I love eating. Going out to eat is one of my favorite things to do. And then it also gives me an opportunity to have some alone time with somebody who loves me unconditionally and is willing to listen to everything that's going on. So can I have a show of hands, some volunteers that would like to give me some examples when things are breaking down for them in an action plan? Relapse, substance use. Very good. Thank you. Substance use. What would be a really good action plan if this was the case? All right, Chris, so you're going to call your sponsor. And you're going to go to a meeting. Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris, for that wonderful example. So note that, again, you guys could be learning from each other. Some things that people may be sharing in here you never even thought were a possibility, or you never considered them for your own wellness. Use your peers' examples. It might work for you too. All right, I'm going to ask if there's anybody else who'd like to share before we move on to the next section. All right, thank you. Move on. So I pass out your wrap books. I'd like everybody to open them up. We're going to start talking about your crisis plan. Chapter 6. And chapter 6 is on page 34 of your book. The first two things that we really want to plug into are what you look like when you're doing well and signs that somebody needs to take over. So before we do that, I'm going to ask somebody to volunteer to read the crisis plan in chapter 6 for us. Gretchen?